What's happening, guys? Welcome to Compound Bros Archery. Today we're going to be looking at how much is it worth spending on a starter bow. So we've got the absolute beginner, the ASD Green Monster. This is the first bow I bought when I decided to get into archery 3 years ago. Completely basic, available on Amazon and eBay for about 120 quid. And then we have the bow I replaced it with, the PSE Stinger X, the baseline model of PSE range, but more than double the price, still considered a beginner bow. We're going to do some shooting and see what they're like at different distances and if it's worth spending the extra money. Right, let's run the numbers. So apart from price, what are you really getting? So the ASD, it draw weights at 55 pounds, has a 7-inch brace height. There isn't a figure given for the let off, but from shooting it I'd estimate it's about 50%. It will shoot at 296 FPS. The axle to axle is about 27 inches, and ASD say it will compete with bows twice the price. So PSE, literally twice the price, so this was about 250 quid. I've upgraded a few parts on there, but essentially it's still a very much kind of a base model. So the axle to axle on this is 30. It shoots at 64 pounds but up to 70. It's a single cam, not a dual cam. It will shoot 316 feet per second. It's got a 7-inch brace height, and I found this bow to be really great from a first bow, kind of a first proper bow perspective. Both bows have drop away rests. On the PSE is a patchy rest, and on the ASD is a cheaper £25 rest from Amazon or eBay. How this is going to work, I'll do 5 sets of 4 arrows for each bow. I'll pick the best 3. What I'm looking for is how tight the groups are, not exactly where the arrows are on the target face. This is because some of my sights may not be set up perfectly, so I just want to look for consistency in how tight the groups are. What I'll do is I'll measure the circumference of the group, and then we'll write it down and pick the best 3 and take an average. It's just worth saying, I'm not a super high level archer. I'm not a Cam Haynes or a Crispy. I've been doing archery for a few years. I really enjoy it. It's one of my sort of top hobbies, but I'm not a professional level shooter, so keep that in mind. For this test it's probably also a benefit, because then you can see how much better having a good bow makes someone who's quite average. Something I can tell you immediately is the back wall on the cheaper ASD. Even though it's a dual cam and the other's a single, it's just not as consistent. So I'll be at full draw from there, and there's still quite a lot of movement, probably sort of quite a considerable difference in sort of how your arrow is going to behave, whether you shoot from there or there or there. Something to bear in mind. Straight away, the back wall is just so much better. Right, 30 yards. Change the angle of the camera so you can actually see how far it looks like it's going. So I think my pin's a little bit off, so we'll just go for the size of the group. Really, I just want to know about the consistency. So that's actually the best of all of them.
10" dead, but it is quite consistent. It's just, you can definitely see a pattern.
Okay, PSE 30. Let's see if we can get this bow to shoot a good group at 50. First drop was interesting. Not used this bow for a while. We're hoping the 50 pin is still on.
These, that's like a 1.5 inch group at 50 yards. Then you just have one flyer here. And that's probably the best group I've done with the ASD at 50 anyway, so let's see what that is. .8 at 50 with the ASD. I'm pretty happy with that.
50 for the PSE. It's always nerve-wracking when you're using good arrows and the target is next to a wall, so if we overshoot we're probably losing an arrow. There's one.
Right, final group with the PSE. That's annoying. These three are good, man, but there's always one flyer, it seems. .9, that's actually the best one I've had.
Is that a distance? Pretty stoked on that.
Right, let's look at some of the scores. So, at 20 yards, the ASD was shooting an 8-inch group, but the PSE was only shooting a 4.7-inch group. At 30, 10.3 for the ASD and 5.7 for the PSE. And then at 50, 14.7 inches for the ASD and 9.4 inches for the PSE. So the consistent theme is it's about 50% better for the PSE. The group size almost halves when you do go and spend a little bit more. If we look at it as a total, 99.4 inches for the combined circumferences of all the groups for the ASD and 59 for the combined circumference for the PSE ones. If you worked it out as a percentage, it's about 40% better every single time as an average. Hope that's helpful. So is it worth spending the extra money? Well, it depends what you want to use it for. I have no doubt that you could, if you consistently shot the ASD, you would get good with it. One of the main problems I had with it was just that the back wall was never consistent, and instead of holding it right on the back wall and having the same pressure each time, I was having to hold it maybe 10 or 20% away from where I knew the absolute end of the back wall was, just so that I had a consistent point to release from each time. This does play a bit of havoc with the accuracy at first. After you sit into it for a bit and you work out at what point you're supposed to hold it and how much pressure you do need to be having on that string, it gets a little bit more predictable, but honestly that's what you're paying for a lot of the time, is the consistency. So let's say if you've done both of them up with good parts, the PSE is still going to be 150 to £200 more expensive. Personally, for 40% tighter groups every single time as an average, I think it is worth it. I would always encourage people to just spend a little bit more, and then you won't get put off by not being able to shoot consistently. One of the better things I like to have is to know that if something's not working, it's my fault. Certain people say that, you know, it's not about the bow, but at a certain level it does make sense to invest a little bit more, so that you know the inconsistencies are more likely to be you and not the bow you're shooting. Another interesting point was, I thought that the ratio of the groups tightening for each bow would get bigger as you went further away, but it seemed fairly consistent. It stayed at about 50% of the group size of the ASD for the PSE at every single level. So it's not like the consistency gets worse the further you go. So if you shoot the ASD, even if you went up to sort of 70 or 100 yards, if you could get that far, I don't think it would be much worse than sort of double the group size maybe, but it's just that consistency that you're paying for. At short range, if you're just doing it for fun, or if you're not wanting to spend a huge amount of money to get into the sport, it is good. I've had hours of fun out of the ASD. But if you are looking to compete or take it a little bit more seriously, my recommendation is to definitely just spend a little bit more money and have the bow that is nicer to hold, nicer to shoot, looks a lot better on the wall, and it'll set you up better for pursuing the hobby of archery.